Hi guys, it's John. Today I'm going to be painting a window. I filmed an intro for this video, but it's not working for me, so I'm just going to film one in post and record it here. We are going to be painting some fruit on this window today, and before we can start that, I'm going to have to scrape the old paint job off. This looks nice in the video. It was way harder than I intended it to be. Throughout this video, you will hear the auto repair shop next to us. Unfortunately, there's nothing I could do to keep them out of the footage. We'll just have to live with it, but I think for the most part, you can hear me pretty well.
All right, so we got that finished. A little more difficult than I intended for it to be. We only brought water and Windex. We probably would have been better off with acetone or denatured alcohol, but it's mostly scraped off, and since we are at a nail salon, we can clean it up a little with acetone when we're finished. But now it's time for me to draw on the initial sketch for what the window's gonna look like. I'll put my design kind of up here, and then I'm gonna get drawing on that. All right, so like I said, I'm gonna draw step one, just white for now. We're gonna do everything white, and then we'll put color on top of it, because colors like yellow and red, they're pretty translucent. So if I don't put white underneath them, they're not gonna be very vibrant. So I'm gonna get started drawing the design in white. We'll fill it in, and then we'll get to color. I'm probably gonna pop this into a time lapse just to make it easier on all of us.
You may notice this is a pretty long video. I think it's about 47 minutes long. I did speed up the painting process where I'm not talking about 800%, but I did a lot of yapping in this process. So if you feel like watching this whole video, I would really appreciate it. But I think I'm going to come through and cut it up even more and try to get this, under 15 minutes for a separate video. But this will be the long version of this for now, with all of my yapping included. If you want to watch the whole thing, thank you so very much.
Like looking in, I was like, is he casing the joint or like?
Yeah, All right, now it's time for everybody's favorite part of painting, watching the paint dry. So I'll come back when it's dry and we'll add some colors. It's about 60% done. There's some thicker spots that are still drying. While it's drying, I figured I'd talk to you. I do these professionally. I'm always taking commissions. If you have a shop with a window that's pretty plain. Sorry, cool guy in a car. I'm in the Fort Myers, Cape Coral area. If you're interested, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. You can contact me here. You can contact me on my Instagram, which is John Johnson __art. And I'd love to help. I like money. I like doing these kinds of things. Reach out. All right, it's most of the way dry. I added another little fruit down here at the bottom. I just didn't like the way that it looked without it. So I think what I'm gonna do is the bottom one I'm gonna turn into a watermelon, and then where the watermelon used to be in my design, I'm gonna make like a lime or a lemon. I'm gonna start with my warm colors, try to keep them apart from the cool colors so they don't get all muddy. So we're gonna start with the orange, the lime or lemon, the insides of the flowers, strawberry, watermelon, all the reds and yellows and oranges and things like that. So I'm just gonna get popping on that, and I'll check back in with you. Now this is primarily a base coat. You can see that I started the orange there. I'm gonna get kind of the first little bit down, and then once that's dry, I'll come back in and do some more details. But I gotta get paint on the window now before it gets too hot out, and then I'm not gonna wanna be here anymore. Works better when you hold on to the brush. I want to make the call that my guy in the top here is going to be a lime. So I think it'll balance out nicer. If there's a lemon that's bright yellow up here, and then this orange is going to be pretty yellow. I think it's going to be too much. So I have a really nice green already that I can make the lime with. So I'm going to make the game time decision to decide that that's going to be a lime instead of a lemon. So I'm going to jump over to my greens now. Some of these leaves and the mango and the lime. The mango is going to have some yellow in it too, as will the lime. So I'm going to put yellow with my green. Just if I have green and red on the same plate, as you can see, all the colors get mixed together. Green and red together makes this nasty poop brown color. So I would rather not get the two touched to one another. So if you're going to do this at home, bring a lot of plates. All right, so here's my green. I've got a kind of a olive green, and then I don't remember what they called this. Some kind of forest or something. It's not really important. Light green, dark green, yellow. I'm gonna go in with the lime, the mango, mess with the leaves on the behind the orange and on the strawberry, and the rind of the watermelon. Let's do the lime first. Oh, that's a nice color. Something that I think is important is if anybody ever tells you that they don't use reference or that you shouldn't use reference, they're stupid. You should always be using reference, especially when you're making something that exists. I don't think it makes you any worse for looking at a reference. It makes you any less talented if you use reference. It's always good because your brain is only so good at capturing details. I'm not using reference today, even though I just said you always should. Because I know what fruit look like for the most part, and it's not important that my accuracy is 100%, but anytime you're making something that you plan on selling, I think it's always good rule of thumb to use reference, at least during the design phase. How about that? That's looking limey. Oh yeah, I'm liking that. Makes me want a mojito. Is that bad?
Nope, I'm not bartending tonight. I'm not mad.
You know who makes really good mojitos? Rondeo's Pizzeria off of McGregor and Iona. They make wonderful. They've got a standard mojito, which is, you know, lime, mint, soda, rum, but they also have a blueberry mojito that's really, really yummy. They make it super, super nice, and the pours are accurate. They taste very good over at Rondeo's. And one of the bartenders, she's really hot. I'm letting the brush do a lot of work here because nobody's going to be this close to the window. Most people are going to see it out on the road back there. So I'm working with the brush. I'm not trying to make the brush do what I want. I'm trying to work together with the brush to get something that looks nice. I'm trying to have the effect of a fruit. I'm not trying to make a photo of a fruit. If they wanted that, they would have just got it printed. They're asking me to paint it. So I'm trying to make it look like a painting. So I've been debating if I want to try to paint around the petals of my white flowers. They're orange blossoms. If I want to paint around the petals of the orange blossoms or just repaint them over the top. I think if I repaint them over the top, they might show through. So I'm going to try my best to paint around them so I have a nice pure white there. Yeah, no, I see it too. Doesn't look too great, but that's part of the fun of painting, especially with acrylic paints like this. Is once that's dry, I can go back over it and make it look not so booty cheeks. So I was just telling you about using reference. I'm not super familiar with mangoes. We have a mango tree, but it doesn't grow too many in the backyard, and I'd like a reference for this mango. So I'm gonna have Hillary pull up a reference on her phone, and I'm gonna use that for when I paint this mango here. All right, after my vigorous research, we're gonna start at the top with some red, into orangey, yellowy, green toward the bottom. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm glad I did the research. In my mock-up sample, I'll throw that here, I did it the wrong way. So that's why you always use reference and not just your drawing, because I would have had the mango the wrong way. I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna do the skin or the rind on the orange so that I can get a nice sharp dark orange line there. Whenever I switch between colors, I'm cleaning my brush off. These acrylic paints are water-based, so I've got this just a bowl of water here, and I'm really jamming my bristles into there to make sure to get all the paint out, so that I've got a nice clean brush. Turns the water dirty, but fortunately we've got a hose over there. It's important too that I don't drip everywhere. If it's too wet, I'm gonna have runs down the side. I already had one you kind of saw earlier. So it's very important to make sure that I'm drying off my bristles. little too dark for my liking. I'm going to go in with straight yellow. That's a little better. Third and final plate for today. Maybe four. So my third plate for today, I've got some blueberries up there. I gotta put some blue on a plate. But I don't want it near my yellow because it'll turn it green. I don't want it near my red because it'll turn it purple. So blue's gonna have its own plate. Here's my two blues. I'm gonna use a smaller brush because these guys are pretty small. So part of being an artist is being adaptable. I put those blueberries up there and I think they're too light, but that's as dark as I've got. And I know from experience, when you mix red and blue, you get purple. But when you're mixing paints like this, you can never get any brighter or more vibrant. So if I put red into this blue, it's actually just gonna make it dark, which is exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm gonna take a tiny bit of red from my other palette and add it to this blue so that it darkens up. And it won't really turn them purple because it's not gonna be a ton of red. It's just gonna make them a darker blue. See the difference there? I'm way happier with that. So the mango's got a little stem that I'm gonna add on. And then we're gonna hop into the details. So I told you earlier, red and green makes a poopy brown, which is exactly what I need right now. So once again, I'm gonna take some of my red and mix it with one of my greens, and I'm gonna make me a nice brown for the stem. So this red is a very cool red. So you see it's kind of turning purple. Easy way to fix that, give it some yellow. That's good. I'm happy with that, so. So that brown shows up really nicely. You see it looks way different than it does on the paint, on the palette or the paper plate. It looks super brown over there. That's all relative to the colors near it. This is a very red kind of brown, but next to bright red, it takes some of that away from it. I think we're at a good point now. I'm gonna hop into the detail work, make my
all around me are familiar faces, worn out.
I just added all the details, and I came back to turn the video off and it wasn't recording. Last thing you saw is I put the brown on the stem. I came back in with white, touched up the orange and the lime, did the seeds on the strawberry and the watermelon. I fixed my white flowers. I messed with the stem on the mango some more to make it look a little 3D. Added some details onto the leaves and some highlights. Really sucks, but it's part of the deal, I guess. It happens. I've got to wait for this to dry a little so I can give it a white outline, and then I'll be finished. So I'll check back with you in a few once it's dry. So there's also some on this door that I'm doing as well. Pineapple and cherries. I'm working on the pineapple right now. Just gonna make it basically yellow. I mean, I've got a really dirty plate, so it's not gonna be perfectly yellow, but that's fine because neither is a pineapple. I'm losing some of that white underneath. You can see. So I'm just gonna come through with a little bit more paint, thicken it up in those areas. That's pretty good. Same deal with these guys. I'm losing a little white behind them. Red's a very see-through color. Just got to thicken it up a little. No big deal. Not the end of the world. Then we're going to jump into the green here. For the top of this pineapple. After I clean this red off my brush, because it'll ruin my green. Clean my brush. Make sure it's dry, so I'm not dripping everywhere. Yeah, unfortunately, we lost some of the detail footage, but I'm glad I've got this here to do as well, because then I can show you my process for detailing. First, let's get this all painted. Pineapple is another one of those fruits that you don't have to do much work to get it to read properly. It's everybody knows what a pineapple is, and it's got a very distinct shape. So we'll come back in and do some detail work. I think I'm going to start with these pineapple leaves since I'm right here. The blending is not going to kill me, so I'm going to give me that one.
This one?
Yeah, my detail palette. I've got some white here and some yellow and a little bit of green, so I'm going to use this to make a nice light color so I can add highlights to my leaves. So there, see, that's a lot lighter. I can throw this here and it just gives it some more definition than what it had before. Just enough. So once again, my mission here, I don't remember if I said this on camera, but my mission here is to get the most effect with the least amount of work possible. Because then, I don't have to work for as long, and I don't have to charge the client as much if I can do it quicker while still getting the same effect. It's like I could come in here with a tiny little brush and do this for a week, but what's the point? Especially in Florida. It rains so often, you really got to bust these out because the chance you'll get rained on any day is pretty high. Clean this guy off a little bit. And dry him. Let's go back in here to this pineapple. I'm going to switch down to a slightly smaller brush because this guy's a little too thick for my liking. And we'll go with some brown. So once again, brown is just a dark orange. So I'll come in here with yellow and red to make me an orange. And to darken it up, I'm going to add some green. That way it doesn't turn too purpley. Maybe a little more yellow here. That's probably good. I'm just gonna do the cross pattern. I'm just making this just like SpongeBob's house. So put down that first stroke. I'm not quite happy with the color yet. We're gonna make it more warm. Yeah, that's a little better. So there's one way. Let's do the other way. Yeah. For my purposes, that's plenty pineapple. I'm happy with that. Now for the cherries, I'm gonna blue up my brown just a tad. Happy customers here. Give it some shadow. And we'll come in with a nice dark purpley color to make some shadows for my cherries. So this makes a really dark purple. So when you mixing paint is additive color mixing. When you're mixing additively, you can never get lighter or brighter. Like I can add white to red, but it's not gonna make it as vibrant. You're gonna lose some of your vibrancy. So in this case, when I'm mixing additively, I'm getting a purple, but it's a very dull purple. I lose a lot of the vibrance. Whereas with subtractive mixing, which is like when you mix light, it's more likely, well, it's not more likely, it's guaranteed to be a totally different method. And a lot of people fight red, blue, yellow are the primary colors because you can't make them any other way. But if you've ever seen a printer, it doesn't use red, blue, and yellow. It's CMYK, which is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And with those four colors, you can make red and blue. So it really depends on who you are, where you're coming from, what you're doing with it. Alright. So I'll come back in with some red, soften this up. Cool. I'm happy with that. And now we'll do a little bit of highlighting for my cherries. Cherries are pretty shiny, so I want to make a really light pink. I'm just going to give it like that. I could even probably go lighter. And once again, if I'm adding white to this red, it's not going to make a vibrant pink. See, it makes a dull pink. Let's do that. How's that look? I'm happy with that, right? I think that's pretty good. I'm going to add some shadow to my leaves here. So I'm going to wash this red off my brush. I think my pineapple is a little too one note. So I'm going to go in with some blue and some green. Make it nice and dark. Maybe a little bit of red to kill some of that blueness and some of that greenness. Nice dark shadow on the underside of my leaves. Happy with that. So once again, I'm going to let this dry so I can give it a white outline. we might be getting close on the other side. So I might pull you back over, bring you in close so we can do some outlining. Okay, we're here. Let's do some outlines. I'm gonna start with these blueberries. I've got not a tiny brush. It's not gigantic. I'd like my outlines to be fairly thick. So I've just got white paint in here. This is my paper plate from earlier when I did the first step. I'm just gonna come around these guys, give them a nice thick outline. This is a fun step because I really get to decide the final shape of all of these. It's really important, especially when you're doing something like this, that you come in with confidence and you commit to your strokes. I'm going a little slow, so I gotta get into the rhythm. But something like this, it's really easy to make super, super wobbly lines. And you guys are a lot closer than anybody who's ever gonna look at this. So I don't have to be super exact. As long as my outlines are fairly consistent, we'll be pretty set. Now for these little bumps, I'm gonna get a slightly smaller brush. This feels nice, little round brush. Pretty sturdy bristles. So I don't know if this is gonna work or not, but we'll see. Yeah, these bristles are a bit too aggressive for my liking. So I'm going to try to find a different one. Here we go. Those are finer bristles. I just don't like how scratchy it is. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. This is one of the things I talk about when I teach my painting classes as well. Because my goal here is to get the most done as quickly as possible, I try to always use the biggest brush that I can comfortably do a stroke with. That economy of movement is really important for especially if you're doing commission work. So less time I take, like I said earlier, the less my client has to pay. While I got this white, I'm gonna add some little specular highlights. Make these blueberries a little shinier, huh? Yeah, that looks good. So like I said, use the biggest brush that I comfortably can use for the job. This one, way too small. Bring my water over here. I'll keep this guy around, but I'm gonna try to use this guy for most of my work here. Just so much nicer to use this. Saves me so much refilling of paint. Yeah, okay. All right, I gotta plug my phone in, so I'm gonna pause you guys really quickly so I can plug in, and then I'll be right back. Now this is a good point for me. I have to just make a decision really quickly. Do I want to just go around the outside of all my fruits, or do I want to put things in front of other things? And I think I'd like to do the second. So I'm going to take this guy, and I'm going to come back here and do one of these to our blueberry friends. Yeah, I think I like that better. So I'm going to bring the strawberry in front of the leaf underneath it. Yeah, that looks good. I'm going to do this leaf over here and then I'm going to readjust you. In order to get these lines as smooth as possible here, I'm making sure to paint with my whole arm. Because if you look, when I just use my wrist, that's about as much motion as I've got. And if I need to do a longer line than that, this is going to be all crooked. So if I move my elbow, I get an even bigger arc. In my arm, I get a whole huge arc. So I try to paint, whenever possible, with as much of my arm as I can. Because my wrist and fingers is good for tiny details. But for these big, long strokes like this, it's important that I try to use my whole arm. I think I made that tip of that leaf a little too pointy. So what I'm going to do while it's still wet is come back in. Ugh, I love wet paint. All right, let's readjust you. All right, let's get this mango. Once again, confidently coming in here. I'm getting a little dry, so I'm gonna dip my brush in some water. Get that paint to flow nicer. Makes my life a little bit easier. Come hit the bottom of this watermelon. Yeah, that looks good. So I'm not sure what I want to do yet about my flowers, my orange blossoms, because they're obviously already white. I don't know if I'm gonna outline them anyway. I might, at least the yellow parts. I got some dry spots. If you see where the paint starts skipping here, in spots like this, that just means my brush was too dry. That's a common issue I find when I'm teaching my painting classes. It's keeping your brush wet enough that the paint flows is not necessarily super intuitive to most people. Yeah. We're gonna jump back over to the door, outline those guys. Back at the door. Can you bring my water cup over here before you go, Hel? Yeah. So, same deal over here. Nope, the bowl, sorry. That's fine, I'll use this too. But, confident strokes. They're thick outlines. But that's what I want. It's gonna make them stand out really nicely for me. And we already decided that we are going to overlap fruit. The outline will come over them too. Why didn't you tell me my plate was in the way, people? Come on. They've got a little baby lizard inside here. I'm gonna open this door and let homegirl let him out.
The owner of the salon's daughter came out and talked to me for a little bit here, so I'm just going to speed through it because she is a little tiny girl. I don't need to be putting her conversations on the internet.
That's my harshest critic right there. Salon owner's daughter.
Alright, what'd she say?
Oh, nothing. She's just telling me about her mom. So, I'm gonna make the outline of this guy a little bumpy. Just because I think it would be fun. Give it a little tiny bit of something, you know. That gives it some much needed texture. While I'm here, I'll do the same thing as I did on the blueberries. Add some specular highlight to these guys. Maybe a couple little spots here. Maybe give this a little love here like that. I think that looks cool. Simple little thing. Give it a little bit more texture. Yeah, I think that is doing a lot of work. I always give my paintings the squint test. I lean back a little in my chair. Squint my eyes. Lets me look at the whole painting at once, as opposed to just the little details I've been working on. And I think that I'm pretty happy with that. So we're gonna give it a minute. And I think I'm going to sign it.
You're going to sign that one?
No, the other one. Okay. I got a nice big spot here I can sign with, so I'm also going to thicken this guy up a little. I'm going to sign in white. I normally like to sign with a pen, but this is a little big for that, so we'll see what we can do. I'm not very good at signing with a brush. There we go. Yes. So it's been signed. Now I gotta spray it with a clear coat, but we left it at the house. So I gotta run to Walmart and get a clear coat, and then I'll be back to spray it. All right, just a Mod Podge. I needed matte. I don't want it to be glossy, so I had to actually steal the cap off of a glossy one because this one didn't have a tip or a cap, but it is what it is. It's matte. Give it a good shake. I'm just gonna spray over everything. This is just gonna seal it in a little nicer because it rains so frequently down here. If I just left it like this, it'd be gone in 2 days. It's not easy to see. Just gotta kind of trust that you're doing it. The technique on this is to push, move, let go, push, move, let go. I try not to hold it the whole time because when I stop here and turn around, I'm getting too much in the corners. So, psst, 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 psst. One of those kind of vibes. I'm trying to keep it all horizontal. I'm just more comfortable that way. I don't think it makes a difference. As long as it's evenly covered. We'll move over and do the door and then call it a day. Yeah, go, stop, go, stop. Always moving. The matte does make the glass itself. The matte does make the glass itself a little foggy, but you got to take what you can get, you know. I don't want it to be glossy because if it's glossy, it's going to shine too much in the light and that'll make it harder to see with all the glare. So you got to do what you can, but that's it. I'll take some pictures and video's over. Thank you for watching. Subscribe.